I wrote this book, and this is like the prologue to the book, because I wanted to show that we are becoming a new species. We're becoming a new race of beings. And this is from 1844. It was the prologue that says, "There's seasons in human affairs of inward and outward revolution when depths seem to be broken up in the soul and new wants are unfolded in multitudes. And a new and undefined good is thirsted for. There are periods when the principles of experience need to be modified, and when hope and trust and instinct claim a share in the guidance of human affairs. And when in truth to dare is the highest wisdom," which means we have to dare to be different. We have to dare to be ourselves. We have to dare to create new ways of thinking, new realities. This is really what I think the whole UFO phenomenon is about. It is shocking us that our small little world is not what we thought it was. That's my feeling. It's not like, oh, there are aliens here and how do we invite them to dinner? No, it's a whole new way, or they're coming to invade us and take over the planet. I think if they were going to invade and take over the planet, they would have done this a long time ago, and they haven't. I don't think they have. So I invited people like Nick Pope, who was a former government whistleblower. He was an insider in the British.
None of us own this subject. None of us sits as final arbiter on this. Certainly not government. I'm not one of these people. Far from it. Ironically, those of us in government are sometimes far less certain about this, less equivocal in our views than many people in the UFO community. Many times I sat down with colleagues and said, look, we simply don't know our honest opinion. So that's right. None of us is judge, jury, and certainly not executioner on this. And everybody's view is as valid as everybody else's. And that's what I think is so great.
That is what's so great. He worked for the Ministry of Defense in England, so he was a civilian looking at UFO reports. He finally left there, even though he was sworn to secrecy. But there was a lot that was happening in England at the time that was being covered up also. So it's not just the U.S. covering up the secret. It is the world that's saying you're not ready. It's like you're not ready to hear the truth. That's basically what your government, our government, are saying. Now this is Grant Cameron, he's Canadian. He wrote a chapter in the book called The Theory of Wow. And he gives his little understanding of why that is.
I call it the theory of wow because the more I look at the phenomenon, the more it looks like whatever we're dealing with just wants you to go, wow. It's all about messages. You start to wonder what's really going on, except that they are putting out messages. The second night I had a UFO sighting in 1975, I remember watching the thing fly away, and I said to myself, so what's it doing? It wasn't doing anything. So now when I ask people about UFO sightings, the first question I ask them is I say, so what was it doing? And they usually say the same thing. It wasn't doing anything, it's just there. And this is the whole idea. Why do UFOs have lights on them? Why do they take the blood out of the cow? Why do they leave crop circles? Why do they drop apports? Why do they drop pieces of metal that make us go like, what is going on here with weird isotopes? It's the question is, are they actually coming across the universe to mutilate cows, to mess around with, have little pieces fall off the flying saucer, to put lights on crafts? Or is this all to wake us up, to get us to realize something is going on? It's not quite the world you really think it is.
I think there's more to it than that. My theory, there are things called cattle mutilations where they're taking the blood out of cows, draining them completely, soft tissue, and I think they're bringing that blood and soft tissue on board to incubate hybrid human species, to create a new species that is half alien, half human. That's my theory. That's a little way out there. Is it too way out there for me? It's way out there for me. I mean, how do you even make sense of that? But there are cattle mutilations. But the whole thing is, this is so complex. There's so many moving parts, really. It's so much more involved than just UFOs showing up, ETs. It's about changing the nature of how we look at reality. So my favorite person in this field is called Linda Moulton Howe. You know who she is?
Yes.
She started with cattle mutilation. She was a really mainstream reporter, and she said, oh, there are cattle mutilations. What's all that about? So she was a reporter in Colorado. She talked to one of these sheriffs investigating the cattle mutilations, and he says to her, you know, this is not being done by any beings on Earth. And she had no idea about all this. It just sent like a shock through her body, and she said to herself, I'm dedicating my life's work to finding out what's really going on there. Because you're just a man. I mean, there's a lot of people out there, they have no idea, and they could care less about this until it's like, boom, it's right there over their house in New Jersey or something like that. So how do we make sense of things that are not in our reality? This is it's an affront, it's actually a trauma to your sense of self. If you think the world is just what you see it is, then you're in for a rude awakening, because it's not what we think it. Of course it is. Yes, things run, you know, come home, you know, do this until your house burns down, which is unfortunate, but things are not the way we think they are. There's another undercurrent of something else that's happening, and we've never been told that. So this is what Linda says about the whole thing here. This is Linda Moulton Howe. Oh no. Because she, I think, oh, can you shut that door? You shutting the door? Thank you. Okay. What if we get that mind-cracking headline? She talks about the time, she can't wait for the New York Times to have the mind crack. We are not alone in the universe. That's what she's waiting for. And we're not alone in the universe. What does that mean for the population of the planet and for you and the history of civilization?
Finally, a truth. As simple as that. If you look back 5,000 years or 12,000 to Göbekli Tepe, and you look at the history of this planet, is demonstrably one in which Homo sapiens sapiens is abused. Because from my point of view, if you are a civilization that evolves for 12,000 years, and you are always under the thumb of another intelligence that manipulates you, and that humans are never, ever talked to, communicated honestly, then we are today in the 21st century, 12,000 years later. We are an abused species. And part of this abused species is going out into the Milky Way galaxy and beyond without a single general human population knowing and it being told we're not alone.
Once we do know, what does that mean? What is that? How does that shift our reality?
That we are finally being given respect enough for the truth of something so huge. We're not only not alone in the universe, and that I would stress, there are other intelligences and they really care about us and they want us to get past this difficult time of lies, deception by other forces that have never told humans the truth. That is why we've got to have this revolutionary headline.
Isn't that interesting? So she is passionate about it. She spends, you can look at her on YouTube called Earth Files, where she spends her time really going deep, talking to government insiders. You know, it is so big inside government. You know, there's a saying in macrobiotics, the bigger the front, the bigger the back. The bigger the lie, the bigger the truth. That is what we're dealing with, a huge, huge lie. And we don't even know why they're lying. Is it just that, oh, there are aliens here? Or I think it's more to do with money and finances and whatever's flying those craft are not filling up their gas tank to get here. They're using They're using a technology that will put trillions of dollars of oil fossil fuel companies out of business. And that's really, I think, the connection to the political aspect. Yeah, but imagine if we all had free energy. I mean, imagine what that could do to, you know, the lifestyles of people. You wouldn't be enslaved working for energy. So we're here to experience something new. That's what I call my program, New Realities. Any experience that's not conform to our categorized perception of learned reality will not be real. This is why the people in New Jersey are freaking out. what's out there, what's over my skies, and why New Jersey? Maybe because of this, Orson Welles, 1932, 38, right. The War of the Worlds, he transposed to New Jersey, saying the Martians have landed in New Jersey. I'm not saying that's why, but it's a strange coincidence that
very strange
they're all over,
coincidence.
and then not only over it. Well, this is the map of New Jersey. Oh no, this is the map of the U.S., where they're all over the eastern and western seaboard, and this is a bigger map. All the red parts are where people have seen drones activities. So what's going on?
It's not a plane. Mysterious drones have been popping up in the night sky over New Jersey.
Do people know about this? Does everyone know? Well, we're going to find out what they are.
Video of the Morris County drones.
The poor was around my house.
What? You had?
Poor.
You saw them?
Yeah.
What did you see?
A UFO too.
What did you see, actually?
That big
light?
The side of the house.
On the side of the house. Who else saw a drone here? Someone else said. You saw drones? What did they look like to you?
I saw one. It was just hovering very low, and it actually looked like it was in shape of a plane, but it made no sound, and it was just hovering over like one of the city blocks.
If the drones make no sound, they're not drones, because that's where the word drone comes from. Drone, that droning sound. So if they're not making a sound, some people think, the theory that I'll put out there is that there are these UFOs out there, but in order to diffuse the kind of observance that the government is putting in drones to make people confuse the actual UFOs, extraterrestrial craft, with military drones. That's one theory.
Triangle lights.
Residents sharing eerie videos like these on social media. Mike Walsh says he's been seeing them since mid-November.
They kind of sound like a helicopter, depending on how big they are, is how loud they are. There's red and green lights on either side of them.
He reported them to local police, but has not received any explanation. Other residents say the drones seem to fly in coordinated groups, appearing every night except Thanksgiving, and disappearing as soon as the sun comes up.
Hovering right near my home. It's a complete violation of privacy, and unnerving. I couldn't sleep last night.
Authorities saying there's no known threat to public safety, but residents have stayed on alert.
Look at that. Look at that.
That's a beam of light going up from
He is spraying the sky again. Bro, this is fucking crazy, man.
That's New Jersey.
Look at this guy.
We love the New Jersey East Coast accents.
They're spraying the skies.
Residents are frustrated at the lack of information from authorities.
We want to know what's happening, and we want it to stop.
Yeah. So all from mid-November into early January.
These quite extraordinary so-called drone sightings all across New Jersey. In fact, it's not just across New Jersey, it's across the entire continental United States, across the United Kingdom at certain military bases, and indeed, if what I'm hearing from multiple people from all over the world is right, Russia, China, New Zealand, Australia.
This sounds like an invasion, actually, and they're not telling us this in the papers. And it's very strange, and it's great that we're all gathered here because I think it's going to be up to us to make a difference. So wait.
Yeah, this is a worldwide.
That is not a drone. That is what's called an orb.
I had a dream with that.
These are like plasma orbs. It's not mechanical. It's something else, and that's being recorded by a news team. And they're saying, "What is this?" So,
phenomenon.
Look at that. That is not a drone. That is something utterly something else, and it is a technology we don't understand, and we and the government may not understand it either. So. We're really left to our own devices here. Look at that. These are all, some of them are mechanical, but some of them are just orbs of light as well. So, yeah, there's all this. Look at that whole series of lights there. If you saw that would be a I think that was Vietnam, they show that. Now these lights disappear into the ocean there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, It is weird, and this is not, it's only on a few news stations, but it should be everywhere. And it's not. What is going on? And here's not some answers.
What is
Here's,
going on?
lack
of lack of answers.
Large unidentified drones started being spotted all across New Jersey. But even after all this time, we have zero answers about where they're coming from and who's flying them.
Why do we have zero? We have $1 trillion defense budget, and the Defense Department can't tell us what's there? Or maybe they just don't want to.
The United States spends billions of your money on military and intelligence programs every year. So tell me, why do the FBI and the White House have zero clue where these drones are coming from?
Why?
Lawmakers desperate for answers as mystery drones buzz over New Jersey neighborhoods, including my own house.
What can you tell us? What is going on, and why is it taking so long to come up with an explanation?
Yeah, it's a good. I don't blame people for being frustrated. It's really frustrating that we don't have more answers as to where they're coming from and why they're doing what they're doing.
Is public safety at risk? Are we concerned that there are nefarious intentions that could cause either national security or a public safety incident that would put Americans at risk?
There's nothing that is known that would lead me to say that, but we just don't know, and that's the concerning part.
You're telling me we don't know what the hell these drones are in New Jersey are? Is that correct?
Just FBI.
That's right. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's madness that we don't know what these drones are. The American people deserve to know the truth on this, and we also deserve to have actions on it. The answer can't be we don't know, and the answer can't be zero.
You can't say on the one hand you have nothing to worry about, we have no evidence that this is a foreign power or nefarious, and at the same time, you're not telling us exactly what is over the skies of the Garden State.
You know, this sort of lying by government has been going on since 1947. I'm going to show you examples of that. It is very frustrating if you're in this field, but what is so sort of refreshing is that because no one knows, or they're not telling us, then anything you might come up with might be true, you know, because we're all in this together in this huge unknown that we're facing at this time, in a positive way, I think.
Where is Pete Buttigieg? Where is the transportation sector?
Where's Pete Buttigieg?
Where are they all? On the Committee of Transportation in the House, also Subcommittee of Aviation. These things come together. That's why he's so vocal.
In December, we saw a large number of drone incidents at Langley. We still don't know.
Langley is an Air Force base. Where is it? In Virginia? Virginia. We said they saw drones over a military base. That's restricted airspace. How could that happen?
Who was behind those? We see consistent incursions around sensitive government facilities.
Had a number of these drone incursions.
So this is what's Gillibrand, the senator from New York.
Military bases, over highly confidential, secretive sites, over areas like arsenals, over...
Now, if this was Russian or Chinese, you'd think we would not shoot them down over a military airbase, so it's suspicious. Why aren't they acting the $1 billion budget to defend the country?
Nuclear sites over the last several years. I don't think we do know whose they are or even what technology they're using. I
mean, that is so frustrating. You don't know who they are, and you have the best equipment that has been made.
Concerned that the FAA and DOJ and Homeland Security aren't doing enough to assess whose drones these are and whether they are adversarial in any way. For 2 weeks, Langley had drone incursions, and it was the type of technology that our radar didn't detect them arriving.
And importantly,
that guy, John Kirby.
He's the worst human being.
Yeah, he is a Republican liar, John Kirby.
No reported or confirmed.
This guy.
This guy, John Kirby, is the spokesperson for the DOD, Department of Defense.
Oh,
and you could see him lie right here on this.
On 12/12/24.
Drone sightings in any restricted airspace.
He said there's been no drone sightings in any restricted airspace. Gillibrand has said we've had drone sightings all over restricted airspace.
And we've seen nothing in this in and around New Jersey that should give
the people on the ground there concerns for their safety for this activity, and we've seen nothing working with the Department of Defense as well that indicates a foreign adversary actor involved or any kind of pernicious national security threat. Now, there have been some drone sightings, I think, as you know, over some military bases.
Now he's finally saying there has been.
We're obviously looking at that. That is a different category.
People in New York and New Jersey see drones the size of an SUV over their house every night and think that doesn't make any sense.
That's pretty much. People would be looking at this and being concerned about it. Which is why we have the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI.
Flying cars right in front of our house.
Taking it seriously.
Maybe we'll be a little
We
concerned.
understand that people are concerned. We understand that. They got questions. We got questions too.
We understand. They understand. We got questions too.
With Mark McCallum and try and find an answer as to what's going on in what he says. Watch
If you're
this.
tuning in, we're talking
Why don't
about
you take one down and figure out what's going
UFOs,
on?
UAPs, making contact, the latest drones.
We don't have enough conclusions
Sightings.
to take that kind of a policy action. But let's just assume for a minute, Martha, that we did. I mean, you're not going to want to shoot something down where it can hit somebody's house or hurt somebody.
Well, the Coast Guard says that there are 30 of them following one of their ships in the ocean. So would that work?
I mean, again, we have to develop a policy based on what we know we're dealing with here.
This guy is such a liar.
To take those kinds of actions.
Have you
a
couple
of things that stand
Now, this guy, Michael Schellenberg, is the only really honest reporter out there. And he actually just spoke in front of Congress about a month ago where he's reporting this undercover activity.
For me, the first is just the dishonesty of government officials. I mean, it was really weird last week for both Mayorkas, the head of DHS, and John Kirby, an important Defense Department spokesperson, they actually outright denied that there had been drone sightings or reports of drones over U.S. military bases or other sensitive sites. No one asked them about that. They literally went out and said that affirmatively, and Kirby repeated it. Bizarre, because there's been a ton of news coverage, including a major Wall Street Journal article from November, just last month, about Langley Air Force Base, for example, in Virginia, being buzzed by drones they couldn't control.
So there's a lot going on here, so...
Darn, we just don't know what these are.
We don't.
Because I'm not going to lie to you.
Ay, qué tremendo bullshit.
And you can't say? Can you tell me that?
No, I'm telling you, Martha, I'm telling you, we don't know. We don't.
Let me ask you this.
Corroborate every single sighting. Some of them we have, not all of them, and we're working hard to do that. We know people are afraid of it. We know people have concerns. We have those same concerns.
Yeah, but they're flying over your house, and it sounds like there are motorcycles landing on your roof.
I don't want a motorcycle to land on my roof.
So deep, it even goes to presidents. I used to like Obama until like this.
What is true, and I'm actually being serious here, is that there's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they move, their trajectory. They did not have an easily explainable pattern. And so, I think that people still take seriously trying to investigate and figure out what that is. But I have nothing to report to you today.
Of course not. So this lie began 1947, June 24th, when this guy, Kenneth Arnold, was flying his little small plane over Mount Rainier looking for a downed other plane, and he saw these objects that looked like this. They weren't saucer shaped. He said they moved like saucers, but they weren't actually saucer shaped, but they were more like these kind of triangular wing type thing. And he said when he landed in Idaho, I just saw a bunch of these saucers. They moved like saucers. They skipped. So the word flying saucer started there with Kenneth Arnold, and then 1 week later we get this headline in Roswell. So this is a backstory of the lie. All right, that's Roswell Air Force. It wasn't an Air Force at this time. There were just Army planes that had capability of flying. Captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region. So some people think that the Army base that was there is the same base that dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They were located in Roswell, New Mexico. That's where this UFO shows up. So, boom, it hits the headline, flying saucer lands in Roswell, until the next day when, there's that headline, and the next day, Army debunks Roswell flying disc as world centers with excitement. So the next day, it was debunked. It was like, oh no, it was a mistake. It was a weather balloon. So right then,
Of course it was a
the
weather
lie
balloon.
started, because they also found bodies and things like that at the crash site. So why did the lie begin? Because some people say we're coming out of World War II. That was intense. You're going to throw this thing at them at this crucial time where people are just recovering. Say we have craft. That's why some people think. I think it also has to do with the technology. So it goes back to what Mark Twain said. It's easier to fool the people than to convince them they've been fooled.
Hashtag
So
2020.
the Air Force put out a whole smear campaign against anyone who claimed to see a UFO sighting. They were completely ridiculed. It was actually a campaign where they did this, and then now scientists ridicule them and media. That's all changing, but it was an actual intended campaign to look ridiculous. Now this guy, Jesse Morcell, went to Roswell, picked up pieces, but this is the pieces of the balloon, and look at the expression on his face. He was made to pose with these pieces of balloon after he had found the original record. Jesse Morcell. He was the one that came forward years later, because he was sworn to secrecy, saying there was a UFO crash at Roswell. So, only small secrets need to be protected. The big ones are kept secret by public incredulity, like the incredulousness of the public. But there were some documents that came out. Now, this is a really major document from the FBI's file. It says an investigator for the Air Force stated that so-called flying saucers had been recovered in New Mexico. They were described as being circular in shape with raised centers approximately 50 feet in diameter, each one occupied by 3 bodies of human shape, only 3 feet tall, dressed in metallic cloth of very fine texture. Each body was bandaged in a manner similar to black alpine. So they found these bodies, and supposedly they took them back to town, because I think there was one that was still alive that they brought to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. But the rest, they were about 3 feet. This is what they call the grays. I mean, this is an FBI document. I'm not saying it's necessarily true, but 1950, this is the most looked at document on the FBI website. That's how I found out about it. The FBI was complaining that why is everyone looking at this document when we've arrested all these dangerous criminals? Everyone was looking at this document from the 1950s. This is called the Guy Huddle Memo. So, Guy Huddle put that out there. So, now there was this. In 1952, there was a flyover over the Capitol of these lights. So before 1952, it was all called flying saucers. In 1952 on, they called it unidentified flying objects. So flying saucers look too much like Buck Rogers and cartoons, so they had to rebrand it into UFOs. So this is a guy, a general from the Army coming forward and kind of giving a little statement about what was it over the Capitol that everyone saw. So let me just go forward. I mean, I'm just giving you a little backstory to where we are today. Here we go.
Threat or menace to the United States. In pursuit of this obligation, since 1947, and analyzed to the best of our ability anything in the air that may have the possibility of threat or menace to the United States. In pursuit of this obligation, since 1947, we have received and analyzed between 1,000 and 2,000 reports that have come to us from all kinds of sources. Of this great mass of reports, we have been able adequately to explain the great bulk of them, explain them to our own satisfaction. We've been able to explain them as hoaxes, as erroneously identified friendly aircraft, as meteorological or electronic phenomena or as light aberrations.
Yeah. What else? I think he has a little more here.
It is this group of observations that we now are
just said something
by credible observers of relatively incredible things. This group of observations that we now are attempting to resolve.
They're attempting to resolve, just like the guy said. This was 1952, 2024. That's 70. How long? 60.
2025.
65. How many? 60 years. 20. 52 to 20. That's 72 years of the same answers by the government. Wow. How is that? How could they know nothing in all that time? It's very frustrating if you're researching this.
The big difficulty in dealing with these is that there is no measurement of them that makes it possible for us to put them in any pattern that would be possible for a deliberate, custom sort of analysis to take the next step.
Now that's exactly what Obama said. There's no actually pattern we can understand. But behind the scenes, there's a lot going on, I'll tell you that. This is the face of UFO. This is why we're talking about disclosure. You've heard that word disclosure, right? Have you heard that? Disclosure? Disclosure is the sort of political, social movement for pushing the government to reveal its secret. It's called the disclosure movement. And we cannot depend on government to disclose for us. It is a people's movement. It comes back to us. We're all going to march on Washington next year and demand answers. I mean,
we're there with you.
What else are we going to do?
We're there with you.
So frustrating.
We have, as a date, come to only one firm conclusion with respect to this remaining percentage. And that is that it does not contain any pattern of purpose or of consistency that we can relate with to any conceivable threat to the United States.
That's all they care about is threat to the United States. So it's out there, but it's not threatening. But how do you know? So Project Blue Book was these like years of investigation where they analyzed cases and they came up with the same conclusion. There's no threat. Doesn't mean nothing's out there. There's just no threat. So one of the people in Project Blue Book was a guy named J. Alan Hynek. Have you heard of him?
Yes.
He started the term close encounters. It's him who said there's three types of encounters. There's lights at a distance, there's lights close up, and then there's beings inside these ships. That's the close encounter of the third kind. The beings inside. Now, other people have gone and said there's close encounters of the fourth kind and the fifth kind, where you call them in. This is what Stephen Greer's doing. Say, let's do close encounters of the fifth kind. Instead of them visiting us, we're putting out the vibrations where they will come to us. So this is J. Alan Hynek, who says, he was an astronomer from the University of Chicago, and he was commissioned by Blue Book to debunk the UFO phenomena until he started to look at reports and said, hey, maybe there really is something here. Why am I debunking it? Why not investigate it? And that's when he changed sides. You know, he was no longer working for the government. He started one of the first UFO organizations, him and Jacques Vallée. And he started to really look at this from a scientific point of view. And so he says, as a scientist, I must be mindful of the past. All too often it's happened that matters of great value to science were overlooked because new phenomena did not fit into the accepted scientific outlook at a time. So that's the problem. If it doesn't fit into your scientific worldview, it can't exist. That's what they call a paradigm shift. So people didn't believe rocks fell from the sky. There was no such thing because the stars were fixed like that. Until someone discovered a meteor and said, well, there are rocks that fall from the sky. And that changed the whole way we look at the nature of reality. So paradigm shifts are always happening. They happen around anomalous subjects. This is a book called Theories of Scientific Revolution, Thomas Kuhn. It's a really excellent book about how science changes. He says science moves one funeral at a time. Wow. Because science like everyone else, are really attached to their ideas. Just look at Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's saying, oh, those people aren't seeing anything. It's an artifact on the radar. There's people who are so identified with what they believe, like most of us. We're identified with what, that something comes in, there's no room in their psychic space for something new. How do you fit in if like a being is coming through this wall? Yeah. How do you make sense of that? Yeah, question.
What was the name of that book again you just mentioned?
Theories of Scientific Revolution. Thomas Kuhn. Yeah, but he's the first to bring out the word paradigm. So Thomas Kuhn. And then, so we get J. Allen Hynek looking for answers. And then a big surprise to the UFO community was this very nice interracial couple from New Hampshire called Betty and Barney Hill. Have you heard Betty and Barney Hill?
Yes.
1961, they're driving through the White Mountains of New Hampshire, and they see this saucer, and they look, and Betty's saying, Barney, doesn't it look weird? He says, oh, it must be a plane. And they finally make it home to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and they're missing 4 hours of time. Like, they somehow got home 4 hours later and they didn't remember anything. But then they were hypnotized to realize, yes, there was something. They were taken up for. They were the first, what's called abductees, Betty and Barney Hill. And you know what? The state of New Hampshire put up this sign, and because I'm a UFO fanatic, I had to make a pilgrimage there.
That looks so familiar.
Says, on the night of September 19th and 20th, 1961, a Portsmouth couple, Betty and Barney Hill, experienced a close encounter with an unidentified object and 2 hours of lost time, 2 hours, while driving on that route, that's Route 3, near Lincoln, New Hampshire. And they filed a report with certain agencies, but this, well, I guess the state of New Hampshire believed them because they put up an official plaque on the side of the road. They are marking the spot of the first abduction. I mean, someone is like, it's not all just nonsense. There's something going on. Now, abductions, I think I'm going to write my next book about that, because how is it possible? You're alone in your house, right? The doors are locked, the windows are shut, you're by yourself, you're falling asleep, and then suddenly someone's standing at the foot of your bed? That doesn't make any sense. That is what's so traumatic. Like, suddenly this impossible thing is happening to you, and there's no way to make sense of that. It's traumatizing. And people have been traumatized and experienced post-traumatic stress. So what I'm doing is warning you that that might happen. Don't get freaked out. They're just coming to visit, and you're going to be okay. But, you know, I mean, they're not, I think they're here to wake us up to the fact that the solid wall that you think is there is not so solid. So, you know, there's been a history of contactees. This is Travis Walton, Fire in the Sky. He was a lumberjack in the forest, and he saw this light, and he ran towards the light, and the light zapped him, and he had a whole crew of other lumberjacks, and they took off because they thought they were coming after him. He was missing for 5 days. Travis Walton, he wrote the book Fire in the Sky. It was a motion picture. He came back and he said, yeah, I was on board this ship, and it was like he saw these little beings, and they revived him. Travis feels like the ETs actually revived him because they didn't need to hit him with the light. That's what he's saying. Now we have this guy. We have this guy with if you want to read the best book on abductions, I mean, me and Julian's been abducted, right? Many times over there. If you want, anyone else have a UFO? Have you been abducted? Welcome to the club. I think I have to.
Yes, me.
I write about my abduction in chapter 7, but it still doesn't make sense. How is it possible?
PSA.
Because their
PSA, this is
physics,
not
their
for me.
understanding of
Some
reality
people
is
have been
not what we
traumatized.
think it is. We've been
But we
brainwashed.
do have a few
Whitley,
people here who
he was
are-
actually a horror fiction
who are
writer.
saying
He wrote
that
The
they have
Hunger,
had an
Brother,
experience.
but they were really covered for these bizarre experiences that were happening in upstate New York in a town called Accord. He had a little cabin where these beings came and visited him in the night. So that picture there is revolution. He's the first to depict these aliens with the big black eyes. And then people around the world would look at that and start to have a little freak out and say, oh my God, I saw someone like that. I had a dream about something like that. So the idea these gray beings are taking our genetics. This is my theory and other people's too. Why are they abducting people? Because, and this is just a theory, they've reached the end of their evolutionary cycle. They developed their intellect to such a degree that they forgot how to feel. Or didn't forget, they bred it out of them. And they hit a dead end. If you don't know how to feel, if you don't know how to create, if you don't know how to love, there's no other evolution. They realize, oh, we took a wrong turn there. We need to get the feeling, emotional sense back into our genetics. So they're taking our DNA and they're merging it with their high intellect to create a hybrid race of half ET, half human. So their great intellect and our ability to feel, because that's what we're best at, emoting, emotion, all that. And so in the DNA is actually emotionality. When people have had heart transplants or liver transplants, the recipient takes on some of the emotions of the donor. So there is expression within the DNA. So Whitley, he doesn't get that far. He talks about his abduction. So this was a best-selling book. I know Whitley. He is amazing. He's still having experiences. He has an implant in his ear, he says, which is real. So they implant things sometimes. But did you have an implant, Tim? Maybe. Okay. Did you get an implant? You got it?
As a child.
As a child, you got it. There's a theory. I know it sounds weird. I don't even believe it, but maybe it's true. So Whitley's a great experiencer. There was this guy, Bud Hopkins. There I am with Bud. This guy is historic. This guy actually opened up the whole thing about the alien abductions. He used to live in New York. He wrote this book, Missing Time, based on stories of Betty and Barney Hill and others. He was a great guy. And he says, you know, most scientists just write it off. So the purpose of science is to investigate the unexplained, not explain the uninvestigated. That's what we're seeing today. We're seeing scientists saying, no, it can't be true. It can't be true. You know why it can't be true? Because we don't believe it's true. Because we don't believe it's true, it can't be true. So John Mack, who's this guy, he was a Harvard psychiatrist. John Mack was the head of the medical Harvard psychiatry department. And he started to meet people through Bud Hopkins who said, well, I want to introduce you, John. And he's this mainstream psychiatrist who said they've been met aliens, and John says these people must be crazy. They must be absolute lunatics. Until he started talking to them. And he's talking to them, he's saying, well, these people are having real experiences. They feel like they're real to them. They're not crazy, not hallucination. So people would come to John and say, please tell me I'm crazy because I've had these experiences of these little gray beings coming and meeting me in the middle of the night. John would say something like, I have good news and bad news. The good and bad news is that you're not crazy. You know? The bad news is, yeah, they're happening, and the good news is you're not crazy. So it's like, he looked at hundreds of cases where people unrelated to each other would tell the same story of being showing up in the night, being taken out of the bed, being on board these ships, and having these examinations or this DNA taken out of their body. And so he could not confirm, these people were not crazy. So because he was a professor at Harvard, Harvard said, you can't say this. This is Harvard. You can't say people are meeting little gray aliens and being taken. This is not fitting with our little brand that we're creating. So they tried to get rid of him. And thanks to people like Danny Sheehan and other lawyers, they got him off because this is freedom of speech. Harvard said, couldn't you just call this another form of psychosis? And John said, no, these people are not psychotic. They are having an experience that's real to them. So he took the phenomenological approach to psychiatry. You know what that is? Phenomenological approach is that you just base the experience on what people are telling you is real to them. You don't judge it. You say, okay, that's your truth. If you told me you went someplace, I couldn't judge it. Like, you seem pretty sane. Well, maybe it is. Maybe that's just beyond what I know. So John was really key in acknowledging this phenomenon. This is John speaking here.
Something doesn't fit our notions of reality, and yet the people that are having an experience are of sound mind, or sincere, or nothing to gain, or in effect opening to other realities. Then it seems to me the responsibility of academicians as well as theologians is to begin to question our notions of reality.
That's me and John hanging out with some coffee. Oh,
young Alan.
Hang out for some coffee. He was a great guy, very smart, and he risked his total reputation as a psychiatrist. He risked his job at Harvard, and he just risked his, whole way of being to come out and speak for these people are saying they had a real experience. So he was a really great guy and really nice. So that brings us, we're getting up to the present where, so John played a key part for experiences in abductees. So we go from now close to where we are now, unidentified flying objects, that's what they call, were changed to unexplained aerial phenomena. That was a big breakthrough when Hillary Clinton on the Jimmy Kimmel show said,
when we had your husband, President Clinton, on the
show, 2016.
He said, I asked him about UFOs in the Area 51, and if you looked at, because if I was president, that's the first thing I do. I go right into those files and see what was going on.
Right.
And he said that he did do that.
Yes.
And then he didn't find anything.
Well, I'm gonna do it again.
Yeah, why not?
Right? And there's a new name. It's unexplained aerial phenomenon.
Unexplained
aerial phenomenon. Now they're rebranding it because UFOs got a little weird, but also the key why they're changing the name, because this is no longer just objects in the sky. It's a phenomenon that affects people. So Grant Cameron says in my book, he says, if you've seen a UFO, how many people have seen a UFO here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's pretty good. I'm going to see what I can do for you, Morgan. You're part of the phenomena. If you've seen it, you're entangled with the phenomena. So it's a phenomena. They're not just objects. There's an interactive, energetic that's going on here that's unexplainable.
Aerial phenomena, really?
Yep, UAP. That's the latest nomenclature.
I like the old one. I like UFO. I don't know why.
Well, I think we can use them interchangeably, but I would like us to go into those files and hopefully make as much of that public as possible. If there's nothing there, let's tell people there's nothing there.
What if there is something there?
Well, if there is something there, unless it's a threat to national security, I think we ought to share it.
Well, what if everybody...
Yeah, so that's it, They give you the excuse that threat to national security. The only threat to national security are the people holding the national security. It's a threat to control. That's really what we're up against. There's a faction of the government that's beyond the Constitution that is manipulating our perception of this phenomena. And the government and the people that we elect don't know about it. You have a question?
Well, I was recently seeing what Stephen Greer's been saying recently about that there's going to be a big disclosure coming up. And he's saying that there's been this, really what's going on is there's this rogue international kind of...
I think we're in the big disclosure. The drones over New Jersey, which are interspersed with real UFOs, otherworldly objects, is the disclosure. They're not showing up all at once because they don't want people to freak out. This is Hillary Clinton with Lawrence Rockefeller, who was big promoter of UFOs. He funded John Mack and his organization. He's talking to Hillary. So she knows there's truth out there.
Back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day. This is Lawrence. And so then you get J. Allen Hynek. This is him in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. They got a little cameo there. UFOs may be a psychic phenomenon. Aliens may not be from outer space, but from parallel reality. This is where we're coming from. Are they coming from another planet or a solar system, or are they coming interdimensionally, which seems like the current idea now? They're replacing like this whole idea of what they call the ETH, the extraterrestrial hypothesis, to an interdimensional hypothesis. So that brings us up to modern history. This is the headline for the New York Times, December 16, 2017. So from Roswell, 1987 to 2017, it's denials and lies and all that. That's, 70 years of lies, until you get to this article in the New York Times where they release footage from in our field. So here we go. This is the headline. And this is, they release videos in with the headline, you know. So, what was
So this was December 2017. The Pentagon declassified some footage. So I interviewed Alan on Cafecito Break right after this.
So that's the first footage released by the Pentagon saying, my God, there's a whole fleet of them. They're going against the wind. These are not drones. This is a fleet of unidentified objects this is government take. This was snuck out of the Pentagon for the first time, 2017. This was a major breakthrough. We had 3 different videos. So so these mysterious objects over, and so you get this guy Eric Davis coming, he's one of, so there's insiders, and then there's really insiders, and then there's outsiders like all of us. The insiders know what's going on. Eric Davis said to the Department of Defense, there are crash retrievals of off-world vehicles not made on Earth. This was published in the New York Times. We could not make it ourselves. I don't know why people don't realize the importance of this. So the person who released that video to the Pentagon was this guy who's kind of like a local popular hero, Lou Elizondo. You know, have you heard that name, Lou Elizondo?
Yeah.
He was a former intelligence officer, and when he came out...
We have tackled many strange stories on 60 Minutes, but perhaps none like this. It's the story of the U.S. government's grudging acknowledgement of unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, more commonly known as UFOs. After decades of public denial, the Pentagon now admits there's something out there, and the U.S. Senate wants to know what it is. The Intelligence Committee has ordered the Director of National Intelligence and the Secretary of Defense to deliver a report on the mysterious sightings by next month.
So we're making a little progress. Besides saying, we don't know what it is, there's something out there. The ball is moving down the field, right? We're a little closer to the goal line, like saying, oh yeah, we're being visited. So there is something going on. That was progress. Took 70 years of hard-pressed energy to get the government to get this far and to get this guy, Elizondo, to come forward. So he has some...
The story will continue in a moment.
Here it is. Here it is.
So what you're telling me is that UFOs, unidentified flying objects, are real.
Bill, I think we're beyond that. The government has already stated for the record that they're real. I'm not telling you that. The United States government is telling you that.
Luis
Elizondo. Yeah, it goes a whole little report about him. But he says it right there in 60 Minutes. Doesn't get any more real from that. I don't know why that's not on the front page. The phenomenon did not seem to originate from any country. He's not allowed to say off-world for some reason, but any country is close. He just wrote this book called Imminent, which was an instant bestseller on the New York Times. I recommend getting that. It's a major, major thing. And the thing is, what is imminent?
Disclosure.
Exactly.
Realization that the U.S. government is aware that the topic of UAPs is not only valid, but they're real. Ross, we're not alone. We are not alone in this universe, and it is a simple fact. And the U.S. government has been aware of that fact now for decades.
The American public, the entire planet, is being lied to by the American government about what's really going on.
I think if the American public knew just how deep this lie went, then we would have a very significant constitutional crisis on our hands. I took an oath to the American people to defend this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic, and it turns out that the enemy was elements in our own government. It was the bureaucracy.
Say that again.
This is a constitution. Forget aliens. Who cares about aliens? This is a constitutional crisis where parts of the government are not talking to other parts of the government, and the Pentagon is just running its own laws, making its own laws. And the big thing is they're getting kickbacks from private industry when they sell these crash retrieval to industrial. So they get these crash retrievals, the Pentagon, and then they sell it to private industry, and people in the Pentagon are getting money for selling stuff that belongs to people of this country, the technology, to private industry. That's what I think the big lie is here. That's a constitutional issue. I don't know. But this is after Elizondo came out. He said the Pentagon released this thing. There's any verifiable information saying any claims that any program regarding reverse engineering of extraterrestrial craft exists. But Elizondo says here, let's just see. He says that
there comes a point in your book where you name names. You name Lockheed Martin, TRW, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, Raytheon, BAE Systems, and the Aerospace Corporation as being some of the private corporations that are involved in working on retrieved alien technology. True?
It is true that it is in my book. Yeah.
You also reveal how some non-human alien biosamples are now being kept at Fort Detrick in Maryland. Or were.
So, right. What does this mean then? That we do have alien bodies, that we're not alone in the universe, that everything we've been told about us being
Of course, that would be your ringtone.
They're calling me now.
It's time for you to beam up.
I'm obsessed here. How could you not be obsessed? This is the most exciting thing happening on the planet. This is unknown. No one has an answer for this. I want to find the answer. But, I am obsessed because what's going on here? We have been lied to. The government's coming up. The Pentagon's not telling us. We're being denied it all. And we need people to come out more and more saying this is a reality. Not to drive home the point, but this guy, Gary Nolan, he's a scientist. He was working on people who claim to be abducted, and they have a part of their brain that's enlarged over people who haven't been abducted. They have this cataputamen is a part of the hypothalamus that seems to be more active. And so he was asked directly about...
I'm curious, do you believe that extraterrestrial intelligence has visited planet Earth?
I think you can go a step further. It hasn't just visited, it's been here a long time, and it's still here. And it has basically, people talk about the wow signal, looking for extraterrestrial intelligence. The wow signal is that people see it on an almost regular basis. That's the communication that's already here.
Right. If you go out to places like Sedona with night vision goggles amplifies light 1,000 times. You will see craft going back and forth. Or you can go to New Jersey and see stuff right there. Right across the border there. So this is Gary Nolan. He's a scientist. He's a matter of fact understanding of what he believes.
And that statement seems so incredible that it's tough to believe. Right? Like, people hear that, and maybe a lot of people hear that, and they don't believe it.
Like this guy, he doesn't believe it. He's very mainstream, academic, business guy.
And so I'm curious, if you had to assign a probability to that statement, that you believe extraterrestrial intelligence has visited this planet, what probability would you assign?
100%. And that's not just my opinion. I mean, look, the National Defense Appropriation Act, passed last year, signed by Biden in December. 30 pages of that is the establishment of an unidentified aerial phenomenon office, the establishment of looking into the harm that's happened to any number of the individuals, going back to 1945 and looking at the disinformation and misinformation that has been basically articulated over the decades. The creation of a whistleblowers program specifically that allows people from within, I'm going to say this, who've been working on the reverse engineering programs, reverse engineering of objects, so that they can come in and break their oaths, but it's specifically just to talk to Congress and give that information in classified settings. And that the most recent one that happened was just last weekend, and it created quite a hornet's nest in Washington.
I'm going to show you that hornet's nest in a second, but you see why it's so difficult to tell people the truth, because reality is not what you said, what we've been learned, what we've been educated to believe. Maybe life is not a freak of nature. Maybe it's an emergent property of creation. That goes against a lot of the Darwinian, Newtonian science that we've learned. So something else that we've not been educated to understand, and we've been locked in this one little way of thinking, has controlled our reality, and they, whoever they are, wants our reality to be controlled, because if it's bigger, how do you tell people to pay their taxes or whatever they do, or this? I mean, how do you control people if suddenly they realize you've been lying to them? So that's the big plus. Well, this is why we need a reformation of the whole field. So this guy was the whistleblower. This guy was the whistleblower who is that Hornets. This guy, David Grush.
I knew it.
Have you heard of David Grush?
Yes.
You've heard of him. He had testified in front of Congress, but it was his testimony on News Nation that really blew the whistle on everything. Because he was an intelligence officer. Gary Nolan's just a scientist. This guy's an intelligence officer, and this is the most intense kind of interview I've ever seen, and this answers some questions.
You are saying to the human race, for the first time, an official intelligence representative at a high level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points empirically that we're not alone, yeah.
Been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the US populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral.
Thank you all for being here today. It is unacceptable.
Yeah, no. Wait, there's another clip of Grush there that I had. But, anyway, this is Grush here. He talks about bodies also. This is him in front of Congress in 2023. This is him having asked questions by this guy Garcia, is a representative from...
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And where?
I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General.
Has any of the activity been aggressive, been hostile in your reports?
I know of multiple colleagues of mine that got physically injured. And the activity...
By UAPs or by people within the federal government?
Both. So there's people very seriously wanting to keep this secret because their money, their reputation, their inside position. And then other people have been injured by getting too close to some ships. Yeah, question.
One thing you should correct, we have evolved tremendously because in the 50s and 60s, 70s, even 80s, the whistleblowers were being knocked off.
Right.
So they were whistleblowing and they found themselves on another frequency, dead.
Yeah. So
and also there was Philip J. Corso, Colonel Philip J. Corso, who was in charge of UFO retrieval for the White House.
Right, and Corso was one of the people at Roswell. He found some of these objects at the Roswell crash and reverse engineered them. So what I think Julian's talking about, there's been a break inside government saying, no, we're going to tell people, it doesn't matter what the consequences. And the old guard is saying, you can't do that. So this is the internal battle we're looking at. So thanks for that. Yeah, so this is another thing from Brush here.
Yeah, I mean, it is a mind-blowing side of it, right? It's a little easy to imagine, an artifact or whatever, but when you start talking about, the biological side of it, it really throws you for a loop psychologically. It did for me, and, I talked to the people that, were on that aspect of the program, if you will, and, it comes with the territory. Buckle up, I guess.
It's a thing.
Were they alive? Were they dead?
I don't get into specifics. Yeah, I know a lot of that stuff.
Out of curiosity, why are you allowed to say that NHI pilots came out of the...
NHI is non-human intelligence. That's the new word for aliens. Non-human. NHI.
Craft, but you can't go
Well,
more
that's
into
all I put in the pre-publication stuff
Okay.
we got approved. I mean,
Got it.
I could go back and ask for more. Any specific knowledge I garnered when I was on the other side of the door, if I want to talk about that publicly, everybody who has had a job like I have has to submit to a thing called DOPSR at the Pentagon, DoD Publication and Security Review. You know, even if it's about this stuff. Like, I know it sounds insane, but like, you literally have to say, like, this is what I want to talk about.
Why do you think they approved it?
Catch-22. Because so they'd have to self-identify and highlight their concerns to redact. So the office who would propose a redaction, say it's a 3-letter agency or whatever, so they would have to self-acknowledge. So I think when I submitted that, they had a choice, right? Either we try to sequester Dave's ability to speak publicly and try to tell him no, but then we have to give him a reason and tell him what organization said no. If it got redacted like that and it cited what organization and what security reason it is, I would just publish that. And then,
so you see how deep this is? How are we going to get out of the lies and the mess? Well, some people are thinking we just have to give amnesty to all these people for 70 years that have been covering lie and getting money, or else it's going to just stay this internal thing going on. So, you know, there's so many things. There's Chuck Schumer, who's saying UAP Disclosure Act of 2023, which was voted down. We want to know what these things are. Chuck Schumer is saying we need transparency. That's what we need here. And other people are coming forward and saying that too. Let's just say, oh, no, this is Luna. She's a Republican from Florida. So where are we at now? What's the problem? Well, let's go back to John Mack, who says, this is the issue. We are dealing with a phenomenon which violates our sense of reality. That's the big issue here. And which operates in the gray area between the physical, objective world and the subjective world. We're being asked to prove this by methods of physical science alone, but those methods will not yield their secrets until we know other ways of knowing. So we can't understand this reality with our left brain logical mind because it doesn't make sense to our logical mind. It just doesn't. So we need another way of understanding. Well, I like this quote by, if any phenomenon remains brute and dark, it's that the corresponding faculty in the observer has yet to be activated. So we need to shift our way we think reality is and let go of it and just float in the unknown so we can start to access some new realities. That's what I call my show, New Realities, because we need to access some new realities. And the problem is, civilization is a race between education and catastrophe. Let us learn the truth and spread as far as wide as our circumstances are. For truth is the greatest weapon we have. And I was talking to Edgar Mitchell, who said, the experience of contact with non-human intelligence is the key that will open the door to understanding what consciousness is. So this is not a nuts and bolts problem. This is why the government can't understand how these objects operate, because they're just looking at nuts and bolts. You have to think like an alien to understand how their mechanism works. Like if I showed a cave person my little cell phone, they wouldn't know how it worked or even what it was for. So we need to raise our frequency to understand how things work. In other words, we're a fish and we need to get into a bigger fish bowl, really. That's where we're at right now. We need to know we're part of the greater cosmos. Does that make sense? Any questions? So it's not about nuts and bolts, it's about consciousness. How do we shift the way we think? How do we raise our vibration, listening to these great sounds, meditation, seeing that we're not alone, getting rid of your old belief systems, whatever you think, that you can put your hand through the wall. I mean, not right now, but obviously those beings are coming through the wall. So there's one guy I really like. This guy, Chris Plutso. Have you heard of Chris Plutso? He wrote a book called UFOs of God. Every night he goes out and takes pictures of these orbs in his backyard. he's the closest thing to like a UFO saint, I would say. He really has an understanding of what this is all about.
I do want to say to everyone in this group that for the last 15 years, I've been 18 years really, 18 years this January, but for 15 years I've been documenting this phenomenon. And I have maintained for 15 years, when I reported to MUFON way back, that these orbs can mimic anything. They mimic airplanes. I have witnessed it myself. One on the ground in front of me shift from a football to a helicopter in front of me 150 yards away and then fly off over my head. And I have witnessed it. I have filmed it. I have metal balls. These things turn into metal balls or what looks like raindrops that glow. So a lot of the drones that we may think are drones could be orbs, in fact, mimicking the drones. So there's a lot happening there. I just had to add that in there about the drone thing, because there's videos going around of watching orbs turn into an airplane, what looks like one. But I agree with Steve. I think whoever's up there has a big stake in what's going on down here. Maybe just the threat of nuclear war, I do know it's got their attention. It had their attention in World War II. They've shown us that they can turn off our nuclear sites. They can do it, and they monitor our thoughts. They know what they're thinking. Many people come here and see this. Just speak to the sky, and all of a sudden they start showing up and flashing and flying by. It's because they can hear us, and they know what we're thinking. And I'll end it with this: that I do know that they're alarmed at the situation out, and we'll get past it with a new knowledge, and there'll be a reset and in a way we move forward in our thinking in this world and in our education system. It's got to change. We've been so long saying that we're alone and thinking that. We've got to get out of that. We've got to move forward. We're going to have to realize that there's a higher power above us. However it's laid out, it's there. They've been writing about it for thousands of years. It's the same thing, the biblical stories we're talking about. What does that mean? We really don't know. But I can tell you it's there, and I can share it with people, as many as 200 at the time, and do it every time. And so, like Rich, if you want to come see it, you come to my house and we'll share it with you. And and that would be a big thing.
It gets a little religious there for me, but there is something there, and we don't know what it is. But one answer is: anyone know what channeling is? Are you familiar with channeling? There's some people. Well, there's a guy I know, Darryl Anka, who channels this being Bashar. You know Bashar?
Bashar.
And do you know Bashar over there? No.
See, some people don't know.
He channels this extraterrestrial being. So he calls himself a first contact specialist. Bashar is the name of the being. Darryl's the regular guy who's just like me and you. So Bashar says this is not necessarily my conclusion, but I think it's leading to this, that we're in a new phase. So we were in, before 1947, no one knew about flying saucers, UFOs, and then we did, and then it was covered up, and now the drone phase has initiated us into what I call the next phase of this interaction with whatever's out there. I don't know what they are, ETs, into who knows, but something is there for sure. I'm not naming, I don't know where they're from, I don't know if they're Syrian or Turan. Lots of people give a lot of names, which doesn't mean anything to me. There's something there, and we have to kind of make peace or meet them on that field. So Bashar has the answer he says is happening here. You ready for the punchline?
This is the beginning of the next phase of open contact for your planet. We are going to talk about the idea of what you can do to accelerate this for your own experience. We are going to talk about the idea of what it means for your planet to experience the beginning stages of contact. There are literally thousands upon thousands upon thousands of beings involved in these transmissions. Thousands upon thousands of beings involved in different things going on your planet, watching, observing, and in many ways, participating. Our participation is about to become more physical. You will see over the course of the next few years increases in what you call UFO sightings, UAP sightings, to get you used to the idea that there is a lot of traffic around your planet. There are a lot of portals through which many ships pass, many beings come and go. As you increase your vibration, as you broaden your bandwidth, so to speak, by acting on your passion, raising your frequency, becoming a better receiver, a better antenna of higher frequency information and experience, then your senses can extend to the point where you can begin to see many of the things that were heretofore invisible to you, that have been around you all the time. And this not only includes the idea of extraterrestrial spacecraft, but also the idea of spirit beings. Because everything is here and now, right here, right now, all overlapping, separated only by the concept of different frequencies. So when you extend your bandwidth, you start including within your consciousness the ability to perceive more of those frequencies.
That's it. So when you start to kind of meditate, drop within, do whatever, and disconnect from the mechanistic world, some things happen because the Earth's energy is accelerating. That's what I feel. That's why people are so interested in this phenomena. It's like before people could care less, and a lot of people still care less, but something's happening, and I think it's vibrational.
This not only has the effect of suddenly perceiving things that were heretofore invisible to your senses, but also allowing you to start experiencing an increase in other phenomena, such as positive synchronicity, things like precognition, psychic prediction, deja vu, and so on and so forth. Because as you broaden your bandwidth, you are extending from the physical into the non-physical, where you have laid out your life path as a blueprint, non-physically, before you chose the experience of incarnation. Parallel realities are there for you to tap into as you broaden your bandwidth and allow your senses to become sharper on picking up on all the different things that are going on multiple realities in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But don't be too shocked and too surprised when you start perceiving other beings that others may say are not there. As you see an increase in spirit shapes, in causal plane geometrics, in energy streams, in UFOs, in interdimensional beings, in angelic energies, so on and so forth. You have arrived at the place now where you have been preparing and preparing and preparing.
And preparing.
And now it starts to, as you say, pay off. The vibration of the new cycle is increasing. The waves are coming faster and faster. And as you raise your vibration, you will catch up to those waves and be pushed along, pulled along, riding those waves toward the experience of open contact, not only with extraterrestrials, but with other beings, other spirits, and of course, as always, more of yourself.
Now,
because that's what this is all about.
Exactly.
Becoming more of who you truly are.
So I don't know if that's
Alright,
true.
gente, I'm gonna wrap it up because my battery is dying. If you guys want to learn more about Alan Steinfeld, visit his YouTube channel, New Realities, and he does have a book called Making Contact, in which he details more of these experiences, and it also includes other experts offering their insights. So, Making Contact with Alan Steinfeld on Amazon. And if you want to check out his amazing interviews, go visit New Realities.
Well, so what I'm seeing is that the government has secret budget.
Yeah.
And there are secret bases, underground bases, that they test all these things.
Right.
And so that now you, and so then because of the government being in connection with the aliens and have that technology, you don't know when there is an alien craft or
well, that's why they have all those crafts.
But
you have a question?
crafts
Yeah,
that
that's
are
what we
going
said.
around.
Yeah, so
you have now a rogue
well, so you have
organization that is.
That's what we have, a rogue organization that's trying to confuse people because the truth is a little shattering for people. Thank you. Any question from your team, Morgan?
Did anybody have any sightings during COVID?
During COVID?
I saw a ton because we were in this neighborhood. We were on the roofs because it's the only they wouldn't let us outside, which I don't think is necessary. That's another story. Great Barrington Declaration: 60,000 more doctors. There's more accolades than Fauci. Say we didn't need lockdown. However, no, it's actually connected to this.
Yeah.
Because as a bunch of people had all those lights off, I was going up there and meditating, and I asked for one to come, and it did.
What did you see?
Right over, multicolored orb, shot right into my field of vision, and I went, no way. And it went, phew. Then I tried it again, next couple of nights, happened again.
It did, wow.
And then I asked friends, like, you gotta come upstairs and see this, because it's happened a few times. Because I've been looking online, and it was happening. So, I showed my friends, and one of my friends was like, yeah, right. And I was like, please try to be open-minded. He's like, I'm open-minded. And then right when he said, I'm open-minded, it went right into our field of vision. Like 6 of us. I wanted to bring some of them with me.
Wow.
And we were sitting there, and he went like me, no way. And it shot away. So something was going on. That was too many times for it to be a coincidence.
No, you can call them in. I think our vibration is getting closer to theirs, and if you really intend it, actually I'm going out to Sedona to do this whole retreat out there, this Making Contact retreat, and we're all going to call them in. Let me just put this up there, because I think... No, where is it?
I think a lot of that's what I was trying to say. A lot of the electrical field was off, and I think there was more clearance to be able to make contact. That's what I think happened during
It's
COVID.
very clear if you're not living in a place with a lot of electricity. Yeah,
And a lot of stuff was off.
Dan, Julian, you're first.
So Julian talked recently, but
Julian. I'm curious about this potential coordination related to what might be considered the prime directive.
What's the prime? Like they can't non-interference?
Non-interference.
I don't believe that. We've been interfered with for many.
Well, in like coordination, right? Because
certain degree of
right. I mean,
well, they don't want to freak us out by landing on the White House lawn, but they're showing up with the government drones, and people are saying, well, that's not a drone. So it's a slow acclimation to the idea that we're not alone. More and more people are looking up now, thanks to the drones in New Jersey. And they're seeing other things. So it's like, did I see something? Was there something there? It's slowly seeping into the consciousness of the planet, right?
yeah. I mean, think about Roddenberry, though. He was a prophet.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
Open and closing doors, communicators. Like, this is channeling on his level through the imagination.
Yeah, and I think he was actually he was in touch with some other channeling group. I think the Council of Nine or something. He got a lot of information. Like Julian, did you get something?
Yeah, the fact that don't you feel this is smoke and mirrors? Because the fact that I saw the program from Dubai, and I heard the program in Dubai, which was called "When They Come, What Are We Going to Do?" And people like Nishio Kaku, who's now a professor at City College of New York, and he's top physicist of the world, as well as top leaders of the medical, as well as the social, as well as economical fields, were there talking about extraterrestrials and UFOs. And I saw the program. Now, it's all smoke and mirrors because we're being prepared, but at the same time we're being squashed because things like the medical field, for instance, everything from, as you were talking about, free energy, Nikola Tesla, fusion, all that, that's not really as open as it should be.
Right,
correct?
it's not. This is why it's a time for change. It's time to demand the truth on all levels of medical, government, UFOs. It's like we have been. Thanks so much for coming. Okay, we need to demand the truth. There's we've been lied to. Wait, anyone else have questions?
Wasn't there a
full disclosure?
Okay, guys, I gotta go. I need some battery power. I'll see you guys later.
Yeah.